So why is it that when Barry gets what's coming to him, I'm caught in the middle of it? It's how much of a dickhead does that make me look? That guy turns on me for Justy. It's like a this is your life. How many times can I make the same mistake? You have to follow Sammy. Always follow Sammy. That is something that has brought me to where I am today, and it's not something I'll forget very quickly. That was the energy that smashed 4 light tubes into the head of Steve Savage and gave him 9 stitches in the back of his neck. The KingSlayer is Ireland's best kept secret. So who the fuck are you?
Everybody, hello guys, welcome to Weekly Controversial Chats. I am joined this week by the KingSlayer himself, Jay.
Right, boys.
Where are we?
So I'm going to jump straight into it because it's what we do here. Two weeks ago was meant to be the biggest night of your life, Loco Rumble. Your chance to go to Scrapper to take on the ODT World Champion, your brother in arms, Sammy D. But that didn't happen the way it should have, because your so-called best friend stabbed you in the back.
You know
and he himself went...
I couldn't have put it better myself. Like, there was an old video we did for Barry's How Not to Be a Professional Wrestler. And it was me and Joe. First time me and Joe had hung out, and it was all building towards how are we going to get Barry his big title shot. And it was against Mark Haskins at the time. The way we did it was, if I could beat Mark Haskins in the KFRC, Barry would get his title shot. And Barry, of course, getting the absolute wrong end of the stick, barges in between us, accuses us of having some kind of plot to go off ourselves and leave Barry behind, which honestly would have made my life 10 times easier at the time. But Barry then just hounds on like a 5-year-old saying, oh, yous aren't my friends anymore. And of course, what happens? Mark Haskins doesn't show up, and karma always gets its due. So Barry then, nowhere near the title picture, as is routine for his entire career. And then I get dropped into a title defense with Aussie Open that same night. So why is it that when Barry gets what's coming to him always, I'm caught in the middle of it? And once again, here we are. Karma is about to catch up to Be Cool, and I can't wait for it. Sammy D is going to kick his head clean down his throat like he's done countless times. And you know what the worst part was? I'm Barry's only tag partner that never turned on him. And so how much of a dickhead does that make me look? That guy turns on me for Justy of all people. I thought Justy died. Who was thinking in that Loco Rumble, oh, do you know what? We have Grado back. We have Santos. Santos is nearly 7 foot tall from Portugal. Oh, do you know who we should get back? A lad who nobody cared that left. Who is booking this? Sorry to go off on a tangent, but that is eating me alive for the last 6 months, a year. Nobody has ever asked me, what was it between you and Barry? Why did you just stop tagging along with Barry? And there's your answer, because Barry dropped me like a bad habit as soon as I stopped being useful to him. And that's exactly what's happening now.
And keep it in line with Loco Rumble. It wasn't the only event that night that Barry fucked up on. He also is the reason you're no longer the ODT World Tag Team Champions.
Do you know what? And again, it's just another, it's like a this is your life. How many times can I make the same mistake? If you watch that whole match, I came in with a great attitude. I was hungry. I was dying to defend my tag team championships, the belts that I brought relevancy to. They were who remembers how many times the Kings of the North has lost them belts? Nobody, because I was the only person to ever hold both of them. So for then to trust Barry in a situation like that, that's my fault. That's on me. That's when I need to look in the mirror and say, do you know what? Maybe I need to stop making the same mistake and start focusing on myself. So yeah, it was really, really hard to lose the tag team championships, especially over something as stupid as Barry. But at least I have the solace then to say, you know what? This is me moving on to bigger and better things. At least I don't have to be tethered to that absolute fool anymore.
I have to ask, so if we go back 6 or 7 months ago, not only were you tag team champions, but you were also the GN champion. We
Mm.
saw Barry come back to win the tag team titles. But ever since then, it's just seemed to be in a downfall after a downfall after a downfall. Like, where do you go from now? How do you build that back up?
When we made the draw, the whole thing was everybody had to contribute to the group. So that was, it was never anything personal between me and Barry. That's always been business. But when Barry joins the draw, my thing was, what does he add? What is he bringing to the table here? But now I see the only person in the draw with a sniff at goal is Sammy D. That's not a unit. That's not how a good faction operates. So instead of looking around me and saying, why doesn't Charlie have something? Why doesn't Flex have something? I have to look inward and say, where can I move now to try and bring the draw bigger than it is now? And to be honest, it has to be in singles because I can't deal with Barry. I just cannot. And if he thinks I'd even step into the ring without the slightest chance of kicking his head in, then I wouldn't be in there. So for me, I'm always looking for gold. I see that NLW championship and I see that on somebody who doesn't want to defend it against Irish people. That is the Irish belt. The heritage of the NLW championship has been around Europe and has always been on an Irish person. So why is this suddenly now Renzo's Rose's belt? So I think that's a perfect way to start. I think that's a perfect way to show Sammy, you know what? I'm in the draw for a reason, unlike other people. So that's where I'd say that my career is going next. I need to move up and I need to go after that NLW belt.
I was going to ask what's next, but you've answered that. So you mentioned the draw as a unit all together. They make this a decision like a family makes a decision. But we watched them all in Belfast, welcome Barry in open arms. But still, one person stood there not willing to do it. And that's the man that knows him best, that's you. Is there a reason for that?
You know what? It's gut instinct sometimes where you just say, this, I have a really, really, really bad feeling about this. And I felt that. And look, I'm nobody to argue with Sammy D. Sammy D has been wrestling since he could walk. Charlie Sterling is one of the most decorated British wrestlers in history. That man is England's answer to Bryan Danielson. He is the indie god. And of course, Adam Flex Maxted is the best thing to come out of Northern Ireland that didn't sink. So to me, I was in really good hands, but that was my gut instinct. That was my gut instinct to say, you know what? Maybe I'm making the same mistake again. But of course, you have to follow Sammy. Always follow Sammy. That is something that has brought me to where I am today, and it's not something I forget very quickly.
I want to ask a question. I kind of apologize for asking it before I even ask it. Taking the four of you in the draw, yourself, Sam, Charlie, Maxted. Sam has been the world champion for the last year. You, I find, have been the workhorse of the group for the last year. We haven't really seen Charlie and Maxted around a whole lot. Do you feel let down by the two boys, or is it still a collective group?
Look, I'd be remiss to say we could have had Charlie really, really working hard for us. But I'm not, ignorant to the fact that we live in a little bubble over here in OTT. Charlie is, one of the most booked persons in BritRes, and for very good reason. So obviously, Charlie's going to be pulled asunder trying to get the shows, trying to get the, progress. Believe in Charlie the same way we believe in Charlie. We know how important he is. We know how much of a workhorse, as much as I like to say I'm the workhorse, Charlie Sterling has been working since before I could wrestle. So, yeah, I would have loved the boys around more. But when you live the lives that these boys do, and there's a reason we are the draw. There's a reason why they're constantly working, why they're so busy. You have to take the hard times with the good.
So you mentioned that the next steps for the KingSlayer is going after the NLW title. But thanks to Be Cool, no Irish wrestler can challenge for that title. So how does the KingSlayer convince Renzo Rose to defend it against arguably the best Irish wrestler on the island of Ireland right now?
Look, Renzo's not stupid, and I'm not stupid either. I'd like to think I see exactly what Renzo was doing. Renzo saw that I was the choice for the big match at the stadium. One-on-one with the Japanese legend, Kenta. He doesn't want any of that. Renzo knows that as soon as we step into the ring, as soon as you hear the bell, it's already over. As soon as it's pen to paper, it's already over. So Renzo's running scared. But that's the thing about running. There's only so much you can do before you get caught. Renzo knows this is a very, very short line he's running. And I am right behind him with very good reason. It would be very, very hard to deny me an NLW championship shot. Very, very hard.
We're flying here. And nobody would argue against that because your win-loss record stands for itself. You've the third most wins in OTT for 2023, next to Omari and Sam. So nobody would argue that you should be next to 9 for either Sam or Renzo. But I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. I hope you take the belt off Renzo.
You need to start saying that as the most wins without being world champion, because that's the tag that I feel I'm being pinned with here. The most wins without being world champion, and how do you say then that person doesn't deserve an NLW title shot?
Speaking of not deserving shots, I kind of want to speak on the local rumble a little bit. So we saw where Sam had asked for an Irish talent to get that shot at that world title, where Trent Seven had pulled out, and we'll get into Trent Seven maybe in a minute. The Flash Morgan Webster come in. Do you feel like that even like you deserve that opportunity to have that match with Sam, even though you're friends, your brothers, you're out to draw, but just even have that opportunity to have that match against Sam?
That was a thought that crossed my mind, honestly, whether or not I'd step up to be the person to challenge Sammy. A few things got in the way. To me, this was a movement against Trent Seven. Trent Seven has pulled this in the past. Trent Seven has said, Ireland, I love you. OTT, I love you. Oh, wait, hang on. Somebody's dangling a contract in front of my face. Hang on, I fly across to a different country and never show up. That's Trent Seven's MO. So if I then didn't defend my tag team championships just because something bigger came up, that's not something I could do. That's not something I could look myself in the mirror and say, you know what, you stood against Trent Seven doing, but then you did it. So I would love, me and Sammy, I think, had one of OTT's best matches in the complex, the GN title versus the NLW title. And I would love to recreate that. I think me and Sammy could make magic in there. And whoever wins, I don't care, because that's the next test. So if I lose, Sammy wins, we go straight back into the gym, we keep training. If I win, Sammy loses, we go straight back into the gym and we keep training. But I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror and say, do you know what? You're not like Trent Seven.
Go back to the local rumble. You brought up Justy. We were there, we all seen Barry and Justy share glances. And then, of course, you came to everyone's rescue and fuck Justy out just as quick as he got in the ring. Did you think for a second there that maybe Justy was trying to get back inside Barry's head and reform the Nasties?
To me, rejoining the Nasties, reforming the Nasties, it's nothing to do with me. Sammy knows that the draw is the biggest ticket in OTT. There's no way Sammy's head sways. There's no way Charlie's head sways. Flex or myself are all committed. Be Cool, however, was never committed. So if Barry wants to swan off back to the Nasties, or, Angel Cruz might pop up for the Scrapper Mania, he's very free to do so. That's his own life. There's a great quote from Lord of the Rings that I'd love to use with Barry one day. Go and die in whatever way seems fit. That is how I feel about Be Cool. That's how I feel about Justy. Those two can go off and die together, or they can die on their own. Just leave me out of it, because I'm at the top and I don't concern myself with whoever runs the bottom.
We saw you in Hard Knox over the last year as Hard Knox has been around. I want to talk about that unsanctioned match that you had against Steve. And for as long as I've been watching wrestling, and even Irish wrestling, which isn't as long as I've been watching wrestling, that's the most brutal thing I've ever seen. How is that for you stepping into that sort of an arena in that sort of occasion with that sort of match?
For me, it came at the perfect time. I was doing a lot of research, just the different styles of wrestling, and I came across Onita in FMW, and I was just so enamored with Onita. He just had this mentality of, I'm pissing blood. I can barely walk. An arena full of 10,000 people were just shouting my name. How do I make it happen again? How do I make it bigger? So to me, that was where I was in my wrestling career. I was like, okay, I have a lot of good matches under my belt. I have championships, but this is a spectacle. This is showmanship. This is professional wrestling. This is hardcore wrestling. The unsanctioned was the best stipulation that you could have given me and Steve, because neither of us cared what happened in there, and we didn't expect anyone else to care. So whoever stood up at the end and walked out of the ring, nobody cared except me and Steve. And as soon as I walked out with a steel chair, Magic Mikey Kelly at my side. I sat down on that stage and I lit a cigarette in my mouth, and I took that first amazing puff. And you know what I felt? I felt like I was a fan of my own work, because that's all that was there for me. Me and Steve. I was the only one watching. And that felt amazing. That was my Tokyo Dome. That was my Onita walking out there and saying, I don't give a fuck if you know me or if you don't know me. I'm here to get shit done. And that's how I felt walking out of court that night. That was the energy flowing through me. That was the energy that smashed 4 light tubes into the head of Steve Savage and gave him 9 stitches in the back of his neck.
It was an incredible match, all right. The last time I talked to you at Hard Knocks in a little bit of an interview, Sammy Lee was just after winning the Hard Knocks World Championship, and you talked about going for the All Ireland Championship. We also now have the introduction of the hardcore title in the next Hard Knocks show. Are you still interested in either one of those titles?
Honestly, it's that thing popping up again. Most wins without being world champion. So why is Big Boots Murphy, who sounds like he's straight out of the WWF 1970s, it's the first in line for this belt? Where did that come from? Was I missing that day? Like, this is the thing with Hard Knocks. Galaccini and AJ, I believe, are in line for their tag team championships. What are they putting down in the water there? And why is it not being tested for everything? It's absolutely mind-boggling. So just at this stage, with Hard Knocks, I'm done. I'm finished. Just put a belt in front of me and I'll win it. Like, what do you have to do down on Hard Knocks? Obviously, no Willie O.D., according to one of their last shows. That's what gets you a title shot these days. Me and Willie go way back. Let's sort it out. Absolute amateur hour.
I'll have a word with someone in Hard Knocks. I'll try anyway. Speaking of titles, you make your way down to RCW next Friday, where you're going to be fighting for the Rebel X title, the brand new Rebel X title. We've only had one winner in Fabio. Is it the same mentality at all as always of just, I'm going to go in, I'm winning, this is my title?
It's not the exact same mentality. You always have to look at your surroundings. So to me, this is, the odds are stacked so heavily in my favor for this match. It would be stupid to go in with this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to win. Look at Fabio. This is a triple threat. Imagine putting a fresh champion into a triple threat for his first defense. That is, somebody must not like Fabio down there. So let's let Robbie X do 50 flips around the ring, kick Fabio square in his face, then I'll just dump Robbie out and then I'll pin Fabio. Or maybe Fabio might get that champion spirit inside him, hit Robbie X the biggest dig to the face you've ever seen in your life. But then Fabio's getting turfed out and Robbie X is getting pinned. I don't see a way where, like, what do I have to do? Do I have to break my leg on my entrance for me not to be the favorite here? Like, that's my belt. Start writing my name on that belt immediately, because these lads, they haven't got the IQ I have. I am the KingSlayer. I make my name from winning belts off people who shouldn't have them.
Love it. Going to hand it back to Tony.
If there's no arguments from either side, I've only got one question left for the KingSlayer J, and that is simply, who is the KingSlayer J?
The KingSlayer is one of Europe's best talents. The KingSlayer is Ireland's best kept secret. The KingSlayer is the only man to hold 3 belts at one time in Over the Top Wrestling, Europe's premier pro wrestling promotion. So who the fuck are you?